Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, over the past year, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the travel industry, forcing it to reimagine its future. Passengers, for the most part, are eager to get travelling again, whether it be to see family, friends, go on holiday, or meet clients and go to conferences again. But new government regulations such as vaccine passports, passenger locator forms, lateral flow tests, PCR tests have all left many passengers completely confused. And it's often down to the airline and airport to pick up all the pieces. And I've been behind a few stressed people in the queues and found myself thinking, technology must be able to simplify this process and ensure that everyone has everything in place. And ensure that everyone has everything in place, feels calm and relaxed before they even get to the airport. Well, good news. SITA is a multinational information technology company providing IT and telecommunication services to the air transport industry. In fact, the company provides its services to around 90% of the world's airline business. And they don't just connect the global aviation industry, they address almost every core business, operational, baggage and passenger process in air transport. So when I read that SITA had highlighted 5 critical areas for the air transport industry to recover, and also recently published a survey highlighting SITA's remodelled solutions that will help tackle some of the major challenges facing air travel, highlighting SITA's remodelled solutions to tackle the major challenges facing air travel, all in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, I felt compelled to invite them on the podcast to learn more and also showcase how technology is going to make the future of travel quite exciting and remove friction. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Paris, where Sergio Colella, SITA Europe President, who is waiting to tell us about how technology is going to help the aviation industry bounce back. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, and thank you for your invitation. So I am Sergio Colella. I am the president for SITA in Europe. And SITA, is the leading technology company which is dedicated to the air transport industry and more broadly to the travel industry. SITA was founded 70 years ago by the major airlines in the world to start building the first networks and technologies all over the world. Since that time, we grew up. We are now present in more than 200 countries. We are a team of 5,000 professionals, and we are present in almost 1,000 airports in the world. So in a country where when you have an airport or an airline, there is a big chance you have SITA around. So this is what we do for a living.
I love that. And I want to find out a little bit more. But before we do dive in, I've got to ask, here in 2022, you're with SITA, but I'm curious, how did the worlds of technology and the transport industry, etc., how did they collide for you? What was it that lit the spark and those passions for technology in you and put you on this path you're on now?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have spent more than 30 years in my career transforming organizations thanks to technology. So I started my career in Accenture. I spent 25 years in Accenture. I became the managing partner for the automotive, industrial, and travel and transportation practices in Europe. Then I spent 4 years in HP, and I was leading the services business in Southern Europe. And since 2019, I joined SITA, taking care about the European business. So, really, there is something I really like is to see since the beginning of my career how technology keeps changing the way we work and really powers new business models. And really, all the transformations I have seen in the operating models, in the business models for my customers and for our businesses has been driven by technology. And I love that. And I love to see how technology is so impactful in our everyday life.
And I think for many people listening, they don't automatically associate technology with airports and airlines. And the reason I say that is a lot of people are aware of technology when you go to check in. Many of those systems obviously date back to the 60s, and there's a lot of widespread news about that and upgrading the entire infrastructure. But at SITA, you're the IT provider of the entire air transport industry. And for listeners that may be arriving at an airport or getting on a plane, can you tell me a little bit more about where your technology is and the kind of problems that you're solving with your tech?
Yeah, and you're right. To a certain extent, the aviation industry was one of the first really leveraging technology. And that's why SITA was founded 70 years ago, to build in every airport of the world a common technology. Since the image of aviation is more related to technical improvement rather than IT technology. This being said, technology is more and more present in our everyday life in aviation. And there are a lot of services that are delivered through technology. And going through the pandemic, this pandemic, COVID-19, has demonstrated to be probably one of the best digitalization agents we could have imagined, beside the tragedy of this pandemic. And more and more airlines, airport, and governments leverage technology in order to deliver an easy, seamless, frictionless, and safe passenger journey. So you can see technology everywhere. When you show your travel credential, when you have an early check-in and you do online your check-in documentation, when you are passing the border, when you are boarding in a plane, technology is more and more present. And it will continue to be like this and be even more important. We really identified as a company, SITA, we are the technology arm of the aviation industry. And we have identified 5 key areas where technology will solve the problems of, getting back to a normal traffic situation in the future. The first one is managing new health requirements, and technology can help managing effectively the new health requirements. The second is digitalizing the passenger journey. And here, biometrics, for instance, and mobile technologies are really helpful to make sure that we have a seamless experience. It goes the same for, your experience in the air. We want to be always connected. And so the customers, the passengers want also to be connected when they are flying. And here we have technologies that allow for, through your own device, remain connected even during the flight. The fourth, I would say, area where technology is really useful is to allow for automation, and so reduce the cost for operating services in an airport in these difficult times. And finally, I think this is something which is very important, especially in Europe, the journey to sustainability. Aviation wants to become more sustainable, and technology helps reducing the CO2 emission, reducing the kerosene consumption in a way that would allow to our industry to become more sustainable in the future.
I'm glad you mentioned the events of the pandemic there, because over the last 2 years, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the travel industry, forcing it to pretty much reimagine its entire future. And one of the things that stood out to me before you came on the podcast is you guys have set out 5 critical areas for the air transport industry to recover, and recently published a survey highlighting remodeled solutions to tackle the major challenges facing air travel in the wake of COVID-19. Can you briefly expand on those key areas, just for everyone listening?
You rightly mentioned that we have done a pretty comprehensive survey for decision makers in the airline industry. And this survey has included more than 160 CIOs, chief digital officers in airlines, in airports, covering more than 40 countries. Clearly, we see that, first of all, the good news is that our customers will sustain or will increase their level of investment in technology in 2022. And really, they do understand that technology is the best manner for their companies to optimize optimize their operations, to allow for supporting the new procedures. You know, the pandemic has had a similar impact on the passenger processing than the 9/11 events back in 2001. So these changes are here to stay. We will need to protect the passengers. We will need to verify the the health certificates of the passengers. And here technology is helping a lot. Through technology, through IT systems, we are going to manage the new health requirements. We are going to continue to digitalize the passenger journey. We're going to continue to automate each of the steps. So just to take a very practical example, we deliver to many airports machines that allow for self-bag dropping. We deliver automated border control gates. We deliver solutions that will help automatize the passenger journey and give the power to the passengers through their mobile phone to really be in control of their travel experience. To a certain extent, we could say that the smartphone becomes the remote controller of the traveler, of the passenger. Passenger being always informed about a change in the travel, about the gate he or she should go to, about how the travel is going. And in the same way, we want to make sure that we have a fluid experience of the traveler, of the passenger. And this is enabled as well by biometrics. The fact that basically you don't need to show always, your passport, your boarding pass. Actually, your face becomes your boarding pass. And your face becomes as well your passport that enable a seamless passenger experience. So all these elements are elements that will make sure in the future, when the traffic will get back to normal level, to pre-pandemic level, to ensure a seamless, safe, and I would say pleasant passenger experience for the passengers all over the world.
Yeah, it's something I've seen more and more, and I do rely increasingly on my smartphone for the entire journey now, instead of a big pile of printouts in an envelope somewhere. And you manage everything from there, from your gate to which luggage carousel. And I've noticed, like you said, with facial recognition, a few times when traveling in the US, it's a case of just look left rather than showing your boarding pass. It scans your face and then you go straight onto the plane. So I'm seeing it more and more. And of course, as a former IT guy, I'm then thinking about, how is all this working behind the scenes? What's creating this seamless experience? And I'm always wanting to take a look under the hood or behind the curtain. And again, I think it was late last year, you released an Air Transport IT Insights report. Can you tell me a little bit about that and the kind of insights uncovered in that report?
Again, this is a pretty important report. And the good news is that investment is expected to continue to be very solid despite the difficult times. Technology and digitalization really is a priority for airports, airlines, and I should add as well governments, to ensure safe and effective travel for the final passengers. We see that more than 75% of our customers are expecting to invest in smart path technologies. What we call smart path technologies, and you gave the example of your personal experience, is when you can leverage, your mobile phone, you can leverage as well your face in order to be recognized. And just to take a couple of examples, in San Francisco, all this experience is really digitalized. So a passenger can come to the airport. Of course, he or she would have done her check-in in advance. She would pass the control gate leveraging smart pass technologies. She could work with self-service kiosks in order to drop his or her baggage. She would pass through the boarding gate, leveraging his or her face. And this experience is really seamless. So the IT survey we have, just done really shows that priorities are around implementation of biometrics technologies, implementation of mobile-enabled technologies, artificial intelligence, and I would add another element which relates to sustainability. Really, sustainability, especially here in Europe, is a key concern, and I think it's a good thing. We can improve the CO2 consumption of our industry leveraging technology. Let me give you just a couple of examples. Very practically, the air traffic control can be improved in order to make sure that we minimize the taxi time of a plane on the ground. We optimize the takeoff and landing procedures to get to up to a 10% reduction in consumption of kerosene and or CO2, which is a big number. And just to give you an example, SITA acquired last year a startup whose name is Safety Line, which has a big data software allowing pilots to optimize each of these critical phases, takeoff, landing, in order to reduce the CO2 consumption. So we can do a lot through technology, and we really believe that we can also be part of the journey to sustainability of our industry, thanks to this kind of, I would say, progresses we are doing on a daily basis.
Over the last 2 years, the industry has been completely decimated, but everyone I'm speaking to want to get out there and travel again, whether it's people that have not had a holiday in 2 years or people wanting to get back out there on tech conferences and show floors and getting to meet people again. So I know that hunger is there. So how will SITA help the industry quickly recover thanks to these new tech tools and services?
I completely agree with you on the fact that we don't have a demand concern.
Yeah.
As long as, or as soon as, the borders are open, there are no more quarantine, there is a strong appetite from the customer to jump on a plane and to, get back to, let's say, a normal life where you can go to a meeting, you can go to meet with friends somewhere and have holidays in nice locations. So really, the most important thing for us is to help supporting the expected creation of the new traffic. We are here to support our industry. We need to we need really to understand that the procedures, the way passenger will travel is changed in a structural way. We will have new controls, health requirement. We will have more heterogeneous situation in the future where you will have travel corridors that will open or will close. And so we need to have and build flexible solutions that allow for the traffic to recover in a new normal that will be different. So health control, automation of the passenger journey, making sure that we secure social distancing, just to take that example, making sure that we allow for touchless experience so that people do not have to, touch the same screen, but they can, organize their travel from their own device. All these kind of facilitations will help recovering our industry. A study has demonstrated that due to the social distancing and the new health requirement measures, the capacity itself of an airport has been reduced from 20% to 35%. So when traffic will get back to normal level, we will need to be able to process more effectively each passenger into their way to the airport. That's why technology is key, and our role is to help our customers to manage in a new way and to create, as well as when we have a passenger experience, a digital passenger experience that will be effective.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it highlights a great point, because yes, that hunger and desire to get out there and travel again, but we've got a lot of passengers that haven't been anywhere in 18 months, and suddenly they now need a passenger locator form, vaccination status and a test result, etc. And it can be very, very confusing for people, and of course that adds friction, and it's governments that add this legislation or regulation, but then it's the airlines and the airports that have to pick up all the pieces from the confused passengers. So how is technology helping remove that friction and helping that passenger journey be more mobile enabled and touchless in the airport?
Yeah, I fully agree. The manual management of the travel health credentials is really reducing the actual capacity of airports.
Yeah.
And, when you travel without you knowing, you are managed by several different entities, the airport of departure, the airline, the ground handler, which manages your luggage, maybe an airport which is in an intermediate destination, and then the final airport and maybe another airline. So what SITA brings, bridges 60% of the data of the air transport industry. So we make sure that we share information. We make sure that the handling of the new health measures and protocols are up to date, and that the complexity is taken away from the passengers, so that in advance, before you get to the airport, all the checks or the verifications are done. So we have solutions like the digital travel declaration, which is biometrically enabled and leveraging mobile technology in order to check the digital declaration before the trip and making sure that you can travel, you are entitled to get to that plane and to arrive to destination, whatever are the rules of your place of departure and your place of arrival. So this is very important. Another point which is important and which goes together with automation is the fact that we need to recognize that our industry in the last 2 years has lost a lot of money, because of such a dramatic decrease of the traffic. And so in order to be able to be economically sustainable in the future, we need to make sure that we automatize, that we reduce the cost of operation, that we do more with less. And automation as well, here technology is helping in that intent to improve the effectiveness in delivering the services. That's also very important. That's why we see our customers, again, getting back to the survey we just published, that's why technology is a key priority investment for the vast majority of our customers all over the world.
And you've mentioned sustainability a couple of times there, and the industry is increasingly under the focus for its environmental impact. So can you tell me a little bit more about how SITA is also making progress in driving down the emissions and energy consumption through your company's Planet Plus program, and how even the UN has recognised this, right?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'm proud to say that SITA is carbon neutral since 2021. And under a carbon neutral protocol, it was a lot of effort, and we are proud to do that. So our customers, when they leverage SITA solutions, they do not, have a negative impact on their own carbon emission situation. And on another hand, we can do a lot through technology to reduce CO2 emissions. Again, there are a combination of measures that achieve CO2 emissions reduction. And this, putting aside, the aircraft and engine technologies improvement, putting aside the sustainable aviation fuels, that are other ways to of course, contribute to the carbon emission reductions. What we work on as a technology company is on the improvement in the air traffic management and on the aircraft operations to achieve emissions reductions up to 10%. Again, a plane is done and is effective when it flies in altitude. So everything which relates to landing, takeoff, rolling on the tarmac, in the airport can be optimized and reduces a lot the CO2 equation of a flight. We calculated that the climbing phase fuel savings of 5 to 6% of the entire flight are possible for each flight without affecting at all any passenger safety or comfort. So that's a way to contribute to the sustainability. The other way is in the airport. An airport is a very large infrastructure. And the idea here is to support the, I would say, electrification and the reduction of the CO2 consumption in an airport. And we have done a pretty strong partnership with a company named Envision in order to support the creation of a carbon neutral airport, because these are very big infrastructures that needs to be optimized as well from a CO2 perspective. So these are the actions that we are really on a daily basis executing in order to give our contribution on that respect to our industry.
And we've already discussed about that appetite to get back on planes and get travelling again, but there is that level of confusion with the passenger locator forms, vaccination status, test results, and even somebody with a team of people behind them, like the world's #1 tennis star, has famously run into a few problems right now. So can you tell me a bit more about why governments should possibly review their border control operations to kind of ensure that sustainable economic recovery that the industry desperately needs right now?
Yeah, I mean, this is a key point. Without addressing the challenge you mentioned, we will not see a resumption of tourism or even business travel like we have experienced in pre-pandemic period. Really, the aviation industry's impact is very important to the overall economy. And so we really need to make sure that governments implement common solutions, common standards, digital standards in order to facilitate the life of the passenger and to make sure that, we don't have 5, 10, 15 different kind of passenger locator forms. The verification processes are not manual, but rather digital and done in advance. And really, for me, this is, and for us in SITA, this is a key element that will enable really the capacity to get back to a new normal situation for the air transport industry.
And there's so much to be hopeful for this year and beyond. So I'm curious, what is it that excites you about the industry's future? Do you think it will bounce back this year? And what role do you see SITA playing in this future?
We are fortunate because we really are in an industry which is full of passion and which is incredibly interesting. It puts together technology, it puts together a really truly international setup. As you said, and as we have experienced, we see a willingness of people to travel. So demand is there. We see passengers that are keen to adopt technology, who are keen to, adapt to the new environment. And we have a lot to do. We have a lot to do to help our companies, our customers to become more sustainable and to build, as I said, an easy, safe, and seamless passenger journey. Pre-pandemic, we used to have in the world 4 billion passengers a year. We went down by almost half. Now we are in the recovery phase, and we need to make sure that we get back to that kind of level of number of passengers in a safe and comfortable way for everybody. So that's what we are working at, and it's really an incredible journey for all of us.
Well, we started the podcast talking about your origin story, and we've talked about a very serious subject that's going to impact everybody listening all over the world. But I'd now like to end on a light-hearted note and ask my guests, is there a song or piece of music that has inspired you or helped you in your career, helped you get your head in the zone before going on stage, or just reminds you of the world of technology? What would your song be and why? And we'll add it to our Spotify playlist.
You know what? As you know, I am Italian by origin, so I selected an Italian song whose name is Volare. And volare means fly in Italian. It's a very old song from, I think, 1959 or 1960 from Domenico Modugno, which is volare, like this. So that's the song I selected for today.
Is that the Dean Martin track? Is that the one?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It has been translated. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, absolutely love it. Brilliant. I'll get that on our Spotify playlist. But for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about SITA, what's the best way of doing that? And contacting your team if they've got any questions.
Sure. And it will be a pleasure. And, we have a great website, which is www.sita.aero, so AERO. And you will see we have a lot of content that is shared in our runway to success, strategic plan that we are sharing on our website. So don't hesitate to get there, and I hope it will be insightful for all of you.
Well, as we said, over the last 2 years, COVID-19 has dramatically impacted the travel industry and for the large part forced it to reimagine its future. But it's the role that technology is playing and the role that SITA's playing and focusing on those 5 critical areas for the industry to recover. Because I think it's so much to be hopeful for and a lot to be excited for. And thank you so much for taking the time to share that story with me today.
Thank you for your kind invitation. Thank you very much.
As I said at the beginning of the podcast today, vaccination status, passenger locator forms, test results, security lanes. There are so many friction points when arriving at an airport now. But thankfully, technology is making these go away. And every time you enter an airport, you're going to be faced with SITA technology without even realising it. So please look out for that. And the last time I was in the US, before getting on a plane, rather than show my boarding pass, it was a case of look up at the facial recognition. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, where technology's going, how technology is going to help the aviation industry bounce back, what you're excited about, what you're not so excited about, what maybe concerns you. I don't know, whatever it is. And also, if you're planning on travelling for the first time in 2 years this year, let me know where you're going. As always, I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. You can get me a techblogwriter@outlook.com if you want to send me an email. If social's more your thing, get me on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn at Neil C. Hughes. And my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where we're racing towards 2,000 podcast interviews. But I'm afraid that is it for today's episode. So I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest from another industry, showing how technology works best when it brings people together. So keep those messages and questions coming in to me, and I'll see you, and I will be waiting patiently in your podcast feeds bright and early tomorrow. So thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.